everyone, my name is Austin and this channel is all about digging deeper and going further to better understand faith and film and everything that is in between. If that's exciting to you, you're already in the right place and you can subscribe for a new video just like this one every Friday. Now I know we are already well into the month of February, but I came up with this idea. I was thinking about the video that I made about a year ago, back in January of 2019, of 10 movies that I was excited for coming up that year. And while I was watching that video again and comparing it to my top 10 movies from the past year, it was really funny because 4 of the 10 movies that were in that video were on the list of my top 10. The rest were not. And 6 out of the 10 of my 10 favorite movies for the year were not on that list. So they were drastically different of what I was looking forward to compared to what I ended up considering the best of the year. So I thought it'd be fun to go back, look at those movies that I was excited for, and kind of go through how they stacked up in the end and what I liked about them, or even didn't like. As we jump in, be sure to jump down in the comments and share what movies you were looking forward to last year that maybe didn't even end up on your top 10 list, or stuff that you didn't have on your radar that ended up being some of your favorite stuff from the year. Share your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, if you watched that video last year, you might remember that I actually went through chronologically, not necessarily a countdown of what ones I was really looking forward to most. So I'm going to do that again here. And first one is Glass. Glass turned out probably about as good as I hoped. I had a positive expectation going in that I would like it. I did think that M. Night Shyamalan had a good grasp on the world and that it would end up being a worthy conclusion to that trilogy. The movie itself did have mixed reviews as far as critics and audiences went, but overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the final product of the film that we received. Glass may not have made my top 10 movies of the year, but it was about halfway down my list. I watched about 35 new movies that came out last year, so it was about halfway up that list. Next was How to Train Your Dragon 3: The Hidden World. This one was about halfway up my list as well for my favorite movies of the year. And this one really turned out really well. This was another really good conclusion to a really good series. I think I might have enjoyed the conclusion to this one a little more than Glass. I'm not sure. I've only seen each of those once so far, so I'd have to rewatch them to know for sure. But I thoroughly enjoyed the conclusion of the How to Train Your Dragon series. I think it ended up being a really solid trilogy going forward. The next one is funny, it was the Lego Movie, the second part. And what makes this one funny is I still have not seen this movie. It came out, it got overall positive but kind of lukewarm mixed reviews in journals saying it wasn't quite as good as the first one, and I don't know if it was because of all that or just the busyness of the year, but I still have not gotten around to seeing this sequel, so I can't really say too much on it because it's been unseen and not even on my list. Next though was Captain Marvel, and this one did not make my top 10 list of the year, but it was kind of towards the bottom of my list of my favorite movies from the year. Not to say it was a bad movie, it was enjoyable, I really liked it. I think the acting was good, the story was good, but it was kind of by the numbers, nothing too out of the ordinary or spectacular. So because of all those things, it kind of dropped it down towards the bottom of that list. But overall, I did enjoy the Captain Marvel movie, and it was a good addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Avengers Endgame. This is the first movie that was on this list that stayed on my top 10 list all through until the end of the year. Avengers Endgame ended up in 3rd place for my favorite movie of 2019, and what more can I say about it that's not been said? The story was epic, the action was epic, everything about this movie was so massive in scale, and it was a phenomenal conclusion to the Infinity Saga, and now moving into phase 4 going forward really set us with a really good precedent going forward. Another movie that did make my top 10 list, coming in 8th from the last year, was John Wick 3. I said in the video that this was one of, if not the most anticipated movies of the year that I was looking forward to, and it completely lived up to every hope and expectation I had for what this movie would be. The action was incredible, just enough over the top but still believable to keep you immersed in the world. Speaking of the world, just the expansion that we have, understanding more of the world of the Continental, John Wick and the Assassins, all of that stuff was great. And I can't wait to see where we're going forward as John Wick 4 is now in the works. Okay, this one is funny because in the video I talked about New Mutants and I was excited for that to come out in, I believe it was April of last year. If you follow anything that happened last year with the Disney-Fox merger, you know the movie was delayed again. And it also, if you watched my top 10 anticipated movies for this upcoming year, New Mutants was on the list. So now we're starting a trend of 2 years in a row now. New Mutants has been on my top 10 anticipated movies for the year. They did drop a new trailer, and from what we have heard, they're going with the original vision and edit of the director of the movie, none of the studio interference that happened that really delayed a lot of this, not only with the Disney merger, but I am still excited for what this movie will be. I'm glad they're going with the director's original vision because for the most part, when it comes to superhero movies in particular, those tend to be the ones that really stand out and are the best in my opinion. Not all the time, but this tends to be how it works out. So, New Mutants, we're still looking forward to this one coming out this year. Glad it's finally being released. Now in the last three, again chronologically not anticipated, was Joker. This is not one that was in my top 10, but it did end up, I think, about in the middle third of the list, somewhere in there. And it was an excellent movie. Obviously, now that we know Joaquin Phoenix won Best Actor for the role, which is a given, it was excellent. The score won Best Score of the Year, which the word that comes to mind when I would describe that score is just haunting. It was so palpable. You could just feel the dread and almost, I don't even know, filth of the character as he was becoming the Joker throughout the story. It was all excellent. So Joker was one that may not have made too high up in my top 10 of the year, but is still a movie I thoroughly enjoyed. Final two now, these both made my top 10 of the year. The first one of those is Zombieland Double Tap. Obviously when I made the video, we knew next to nothing about this movie, and it was still up until I think September or August before we got a trailer for this movie, which was, I don't know, I liked that. But at the same time, when the movie did come out, I thought it was cool because we knew basically nothing about the movie until about 2 months before it came out. But kind of on a negative side is the movie got really good reviews. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I thought it was an excellent sequel, but not enough people saw it, I don't think. Like it had good word of mouth, good reviews, people really liked it, critics enjoyed it, but it didn't make like a ton of money. And not that that's everything, but I really thought it deserved a lot better than what it ended up getting. And Zombieland Double Tap ended up in 10th place on my list for the top 10 movies of the year. Lastly was Star Wars Episode 9, which is The Rise of Skywalker. And this one was, for some reason, controversial, again, because Star Wars is just controversial these days, I guess. But I really enjoyed this one. It came in 7th for me as top 10 films of the year. It was a good conclusion. I liked what they did with the characters, the story. It was all enjoyable. They took some interesting risks and I thought they paid off for the most part, and I liked the conclusion that we ended up with for everything that happened to wrap things up. Now, before I wrap things up here, I do want to address this. I did a poll over on my Facebook page, which if you don't follow there, you can go in the link down below to my Facebook page. It's kind of a companion to this. I promote what the topic's going to be for the week so we can kind of look forward to it as it's coming. So if you want to engage with me more throughout the week leading up to each video, like the page over there and give it a follow. So I put a poll up asking if people would want me to do kind of an updated top 10 movies of the year, because over the past month or two I've been catching up on some new movies, and in my opinion, drastically changed my top 10 movies for the year. And that is because of Parasite and 1917. So really quick, I'm just gonna kind of amend my top 10 of the year. I will put my top 10 movies of 2019 video at the end of this one so you can see more in-depth descriptions, but I'm just going to talk about those two and where they placed. I'm gonna go very quickly over the other ones, as I've already kind of talked at length about why those were where they were. So, Zombieland Double Tap still holds 10th place on this list. What actually happened is Shadow and Shazam got knocked off, and that is because of Parasite in 1917, so you'll get to hear about those soon. 9th was The Irishman, 8th was John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, 7th Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, and 6th was 1917. This was one that was released technically in December. I really wanted to see it, but it was not playing anywhere near me because it was such a limited release. It went wide in January, so I got to see that opening weekend. Absolutely incredible movie. I loved it. It almost won Best Picture. I really thought it was going to win Best Picture at the Oscars, but even though it did not, it still was an incredible achievement of a movie. Roger Deakins' cinematography was excellent. I thought the characters in the story were good. They were characters that you could follow and the characters that you could empathize with what was going on, but definitely at the very center was the cinematography and the act of following these characters in what seemed to be a single take for the whole film. So I very, very much enjoyed this because obviously I have an interest in filmmaking, and so it fascinated me, all the behind the scenes stuff leading up to this. And so 1917 ended up in 6th place for my top 10 movies of the year. Jumping now into 5th place was Parasite. Wow. I'm so glad we finally had a foreign film not only win international film, but Best Director, Best Original Screenplay. I think Knives Out probably should have won Screenplay. I love that screenplay. And of course, Best Picture. And I was so happy for this because it is a really huge step for filmmaking when it comes to how people view foreign and international films that are not in English. I'm really hoping this opens more doors. I just did a video on this not too long ago about people needing to watch more foreign films. We don't watch enough of these because they're some of the best movies ever made. Look at this. Parasite just won Best Picture, Best International Film, Best Director, Best Screenwriting, all of these things. It's an incredible achievement, and I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I watched it just a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and just a few days after that for the second time, showing it to my wife, and I loved it both times. First time I gave it 4.5 out of 5. Second time I watched it a few days later, I was like, forget it, it's a 5-star film. I loved it. And so if you've not checked out Parasite yet, I highly recommend it. Again, came in 5th for me of top 10 of the year. And just so I can wrap this up again in case you hadn't seen that top 10 of the year, 4th was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 3rd place was Avengers Endgame, 2nd place was Knives Out, and my favorite movie of the year, got a bit snubbed in my opinion, Ford v Ferrari. So that's my final video of a look back at 2019 and the movies I was anticipating, kind of how they turned out, as well as an amendment to my top 10 movies of 2019. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for sticking around to the end. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, make sure you're subscribed, and share it with someone who you know will enjoy it just as much as you did. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next video.